like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
With this one line, Wes Craven establishes exactly what Scream is.
It's just chock full of references.
It's a scary movie about scary movies.
You know, both obvious and subtle.
What comes to mind?
Halloween.
It's both a self-aware parody of horror films and a great horror film in its own right.
Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
But that's not all it does, because this whole 12-minute segment is a masterclass in how to open a film.
Can you handle that, Lottie?
Hello?
So we start with a phone call.
Yes?
We've got no context as to who these people are, but we don't need any. It's a girl, home alone, talking to a stranger on the phone.
Well, I think you have the wrong number.
It's the opposite of throwing us in the deep end. We start with something simple and specific to latch onto, and we go from there.
Hello?
The shots of the steaming popcorn on the stove and the smooth camera movements that follow behind her create an uneasy tone. She plays with a knife, adding some danger to the scene.
You know, the one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters?
But then, everything changes.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
The coin flips. The tension is no longer lingering in the background, but articulates itself as horror. The smoke darkens the white surroundings. Drew Barrymore's performance becomes noticeably more anxious and afraid. And the playful, self-aware jabs at the genre are cleverly repurposed to evoke genuine horror.
Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason!
This opening scene straight away establishes that Scream is a horror movie about other horror movies.
That's the wrong answer.
And if you don't know the tropes of the genre, you're not going to make it out alive.
Jason didn't show up until the sequel.
This is, to me, what makes a great opening scene.
Hello?
These opening 12 minutes act as a microcosm for the ensuing hour and a half.
Hello?
And this is what we're going to talk about today. How an opening scene is constructed can tell us a lot about the film's tone, setting, characters and story. But we can also learn about the people behind the camera, and certain filmmakers' priorities for their film.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
So this video is going to be a journey through some of the best I've seen from across multiple eras, genres and styles.
No, I'm done here.
But it's also about how the beginning of a film can shape how you perceive it as a whole.
I wasn't talking about China anymore, I was talking about me.
First impressions are important, and the first scene is the very first thing the audience sees, and it's this impression that they carry forward into the rest of the movie. And I think that's worth taking a look at. Are you ready? Let's go. A good opening scene is engaging. It gives the audience something to latch onto, catches their attention, and puts the story in motion.
What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.
A great opening scene can do all of that, while also establishing what the film will be about on a deeper level, thematically, tonally. It should distill what the film is into this one scene. And some of the best opening scenes, in my mind at least, do all of this while leaving a lasting impression that resonates throughout the film. They not only captivate, but set the stage for the audience to fully immerse themselves in the world of the story, providing a glimpse of the film's core and making an unforgettable impact from the very first frame. I want to start by comparing two films that on the surface should be quite similar, but in execution couldn't be more different: Saving Private Ryan and The Thin Red Line. They're both World War II movies. They're both released in 1998. They both have an impressive ensemble cast, and they both explore similar themes.
I just know that every man I kill, the farther away from home I feel.
But Steven Spielberg and Terrence Malick are two very different filmmakers.
How do you honor veterans?
And by looking at how they open their films, this difference can be better understood.
In all honesty, you show all the honesty. The honesty meaning that death comes quick, and when it doesn't, you suffer. You lose your best friends, and then you make new ones and you lose them.
Stop the bleeding! Stop the bleeding!
The D-Day landing scene is one of the most lauded action scenes ever, and for good reason. It's brutal and chaotic. The sound design immerses us in the battle, and the shaky cam helps elevate the danger of the situation. There's a kind of indifference towards death. The film just shrugs it off, as if it's nothing. And there's a great moment towards the end of the sequence, which highlights the desperation of the characters.
You're not that far from me, O Lord.
They're turned into a higher power to help them make a shot, help them survive, or to reassure a dying friend. Each and every person on that beach is pushed to the extreme, so they turn to something greater than themselves.
All my strength
Please do to help me.
From this opening, we can tell Saving Private Ryan is not a movie that glorifies war. The colours are muted to convey gritty reality, and there's no grand heroic moment. It's chaotic and deadly. Simply put, this is the world at its most ugly. But the opening of A Thin Red Line shows the world at its most peaceful.
What's this war in the heart of nature?
These serene shots of the jungle are typical Terrence Malick. The camera is our window into the world, gliding smoothly through the jungle, looking up as if it's searching for a higher power.
Why does nature vie with itself?
The voiceover establishes one of the central interests of the film, the relationship between war and nature, the duality of existence, creation and destruction, harmony and conflict. The film begins with the central character living on this island. He asks if the children there fight.
Kids around here never fight.
And just like that, this theme is put into dialogue.
Sometimes when they see them playing, they always fight.
Is fighting part of human nature? Is conflict just a natural part of the world?
This great evil, where's it come from?
The film never gives a concrete answer, least of all in the opening. But these first 10 minutes perfectly encapsulate what The Thin Red Line feels like. It uses the World War II setting merely as a vehicle to explore how conflict relates to the natural world, as well as how it affects people on an individual level.
I've lived with these men, sir, for 2.5 years, and I will not order them all to their deaths. Over.
It explores abstract ideas in abstract ways. It's less concerned with telling the narrative, and more of exploring war on a spiritual level.
A man himself is nothing.
The film unfolds with a level of poetic grace that is central to Terrence Malick's style. In short, by watching the opening scene, you know you're not in for a typical war movie. But compare this to Saving Private Ryan. It's one of the best of all time for sure, but the film certainly follows a structure to what has now become a traditional war movie feel. So this is how Terrence Malick opens a war film.
I heard people talk about immortality, but I ain't seen it.
And this is how Spielberg does. After making this section, I realised there's some technical difficulties. The D-Day landing scene in Saving Private Ryan isn't actually the first scene of the movie. This is. But what you're watching now serves more as a prologue, a flash forward to prepare us for the story to begin before it actually does. And Saving Private Ryan isn't alone in this. A lot of films have a kind of preliminary scene before the story begins in earnest. In this case, it's a way to frame and contextualize the main story. For Apocalypse Now, it's a montage of the jungle set to The Doors, which teases a dreamy and psychedelic vibe, which eventually comes to consume the film by its end. In 28 Days Later, the first scene just gives us some exposition as to how the apocalypse began, before the story kicks into gear.
Infected with what?
Rage.
And in Mulholland Drive, we begin with this. It's a weird moment that's never really explained. It continues until Naomi Watts steps into the spotlight, before cutting to a pillow. It was all a dream.
If you have the first idea, that's the most critical one.
Throughout the film, her character dreams of being a star.
Come on, it'll be just like in the movies.
But the backdrop of the fame she strives towards is eventually revealed to be artificial.
We'll pretend to be someone else.
So the dancers are imposed onto a fake purple background.
That idea, if you focus on it, it'll draw other ideas in.
This opening sequence establishes a kind of surrealism imposed on everyday American life to reveal the corruption behind the facade. In a word, it's Lynchian.
You have to have patience, but if you keep focusing on it and wiggle the line a little bit, it'll bring them in.
Lots of other films follow a similar pattern by starting with one of these prologue scenes. Typically they're quite short and relatively disconnected from the main story. They can inform what comes next, but usually in a thematic way or to set up the characters or the setting, rather than actually beginning the plot. It's essentially there to establish a vibe. And I think a great example of how a film opens on a very specific feeling that carries forward into the rest of the movie is another Spielberg film, Jaws. It's a warm summer evening. A group of teenagers are drinking beer and smoking cigarettes on the beach. A couple run off to go swimming.
What's your name again?
Chrissy.
Like Scream, we start with something simple and specific.
Hello?
We don't need to know who these people are or why they're there, so the film doesn't tell us.
Where are we going?
Swimming!
We see Chrissy alone, in the open water, and then we cut to this. Another presence is introduced into the scene. The tension gets stronger and stronger as we get closer to Chrissy, her getting bigger in the frame. And then, the shark bites. As she thrashes around, the scene gets louder, screaming and splashing. It's a violent death, interrupting the peace and tranquility of the setting. But once she goes under, silence. Spielberg draws a boundary between the known and the unknown. The surface of the water is familiar and safe, but what lies beneath is unsafe and unknowable. The horror comes when this boundary is crossed, and in not showing the shark, it heightens its power and its danger. Because of this scene, we know it's out there, we know it's something to be scared of, and because it's executed so well, we can accept it as a driving force behind the plot.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
There's a comparison to be made here between the opening to Jaws and the opening to John Carpenter's Halloween. We both see the killer's perspective as they approach their victim. Its identity is kept hidden. We're never allowed to visualize the killer in our head. Jaws uses this to harness the fear of the unknown, but Halloween uses it for a great reveal. After following this unknown entity to kill an innocent victim, it heads outside and gets unmasked.
Michael?
And it's not a deranged psycho, it's just an innocent looking kid. By using this POV, we see the world from Michael's perspective, getting a glimpse into his thoughts and feelings. And what are these thoughts and feelings? Grab knife, kill woman. Both of these scenes and Scream are self-contained. There's no lingering unanswered questions. Everything set up is resolved by the end of the scene.
We had a shark attack at South Beach this morning, man!
Of course, there's still the killer out there, and the plot is tangibly set in motion.
AC Becca and Steve Orest were killed last night.
But where it goes from there is quite open-ended.
And we're not just talking killed, we're talking splattered be killed.
Sure, we can make some assumptions. We assume the killer will kill again.
Scary night, isn't it?
And we assume the shark will be hunted. But these are just that. Assumptions.
$10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
The film doesn't overwhelm us by overtly telling us what's coming next. You'd think an opening should leave us with questions that we want to know the answers to.
Rosebud.
But setting up these mysteries doesn't seem to be the priority of the scene.
I can swim!
The priority seems to be giving us a taste of what's to come, and a showcase of the film's themes and the film's tone. This is an approach Spielberg in particular likes to use. Raiders of the Lost Ark introducing us to Indy, but apart from that it's not really related to the wider plot.
Nobody's come out of there alive.
We never see the Golden Idol again, and his friend Sapito is dead by the scene's end.
Adios, Sapito.
But it's one of the most iconic openings of all time. This is because it's a great scene in its own right, and it distills the core of what Indiana Jones is into the first 15 minutes. We learn that he's a good treasure hunter, knowing to avoid these pillars of light. He has good instincts, filling the bag with sand before he even enters the temple. And of course, we learn that he's scared of snakes.
There's a big snake in the plane, Jacques!
Not only adding some humour, but humanising him too.
I hate snakes, Jacques! I hate them!
This approach of starting the film with a relatively unrelated segment has proven to be effective time and time again. The purpose isn't to pose questions we want answers to, but to ease the audience into the film without overloading them with exposition. But it's not the only approach, because we also have this.
Rosebud.
Guess we found Andy's rosebud.
Rosebud.
It's a reference to Citizen Kane. It's something that explains why a person became the way they are.
Rosebud. It's one of the most famous lines of all time from one of the most famous films of all time.
Rosebud? Rosebud? Rosebud?
This rosebud you're trying to find out about.
It's a burning, unanswered question that we carry forward into the rest of the film.
I know Citizen Kane. Rosebud didn't explain why he was, how he was.
But I rented those for Peter. He got banned from the video store for taping over their movies.
It just represented what was important to him as a child that he missed.
It doesn't really matter what Rosebud means. It's a mystery that we want answered.
Is his sled. It was his sled from when he was a kid.
Different school of thought. Let's just agree to disagree.
No, you're wrong.
And the only way to get answers is to keep watching, stay engaged with the movie, and pay close attention to try and work it out.
Maybe that was something he lost.
But what about what comes before Rosebud? There's a whole 2 minutes of gradual build-up that subtly tells us a lot about who this person is, and why Rosebud is so effective as a line. So we start with a no trespassing sign, but we continue forward, disobeying the order. We're getting a glimpse into something we shouldn't. We're invading the privacy of this space, and eventually invading the privacy of Kane's death. The scene then continues with a number of dissolves. We see a grand castle on the hill, so we know this is a rich, powerful person.
You'll probably be the richest man in America someday.
The matte painting gives it almost a mythical atmosphere. These monkeys spark our curiosity, and the ornate scening gives it an exotic feel. We gradually get closer to the house, and then... Rosebud. In these 2 minutes, we learn just enough to spark our curiosity about who this person is. Rosebud is the icing on the cake. We're hooked in with unanswered questions that we need to be resolved, so we keep watching.
Well, you're gonna need more than one lesson.
Orson Welles uses a similar technique in his 1958 noir film Touch of Evil.
You're gonna get more than one lesson.
It starts with someone planting a bomb in a car, followed on by a 4-minute long take. And as far as long takes go, this is one of the best. The tension gradually builds with the car almost always being somewhere in the shot, and although we never see the bomb again, we're reminded of it.
I got this ticking noise.
Yeah, okay.
The one then ends with a romantic moment.
You realize I haven't kissed you in over an hour?
Creating dramatic irony because we know something bad is about to happen. And right on schedule, it does. It's a masterclass on how to create dramatic tension without dialogue or over the top action. And of course, leaves us with unanswered questions. Who planted the bomb and why?
You haven't heard anything about that bomb, have you?
Okay, so Welles likes to give us questions we want answers to.
He's got something on his mind called Rosebud.
Spielberg likes to open with a disconnected sequence that gets us in the zone for the rest of the movie.
Stay out of the light.
But what about other directors? Martin Scorsese likes to begin his films with a voiceover.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
It's a way to frame the story, as if the main character is telling it to us after it's happened.
When I was young, I thought house painters painted houses.
This isn't the case for all of his films.
I can't sleep nights.
But regardless if it's a voiceover or not, Scorsese likes to begin with the protagonist front and centre.
What did I know?
This is their story, from their perspective, as they tell it to us.
No. My Ferrari was white like Don Johnson's in Miami Vice.
Which fits, because while Scorsese films can often be grand in scale, at their core, they're typically more character-driven.
Like a non-alcoholic beer. It's got no alcohol.
But there's also a focus on the world the character lives in. Casino, well, it's about casinos.
Before I ever ran a casino, Ace Rothstein was a hell of a handicapper.
Wolf of Wall Street, it's about the excess, the absurd lives of luxury these ultra-rich people live.
I own a mansion, private jet, 6 cars, 3 horses, 2 vacation homes, and a 170-foot yacht. Unlike
Scream, we kind of are thrown in the deep end. These are essentially exposition dumps, giving us a lot of information about the characters in the world.
Bill Buffalino's daughter was getting married in Detroit.
But ultimately, there's not that much we actually need to keep track of. Robert De Niro runs a casino in Vegas.
But running a casino, and that's like selling people dreams for cash.
Jordan Belfort runs some kind of finance company and loves money. An older Robert De Niro is a retired gangster, looking back on his career in the mafia.
I started painting houses.
But for Scorsese's latest film, he does something different. In Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese seems to be more upfront about the evils of his usual protagonists than ever.
You like red?
Red? I mean, that kind of red? Mm-hmm.
While his previous films have a slickness and charisma to them that makes it easy to forget the morality, Killers forgoes this. It's his most self-reflective work yet.
Mrs. Molly Cobb, 50 years of age, passed away at 11 o'clock Wednesday night at her home.
Scorsese seems to be criticizing the approach he took in earlier films.
There was no mention of the murders.
And in starting with The Osage Nation, this is clearer than ever. This is their story, or rather, this should be their story.
And so at a certain point, Leo turned to me and he said, "Where's the heart? Where is the heart?"
Henry Sugar was 41 years old, unmarried and rich.
Wes Anderson is another director who likes to begin his films by framing the way the story is being told to us. Most of his recent movies work as stories within a story, like Asteroid City being a play, aired on an episode of television.
Asteroid City does not exist.
So of course, the opening scene sets this up.
It is an imaginary drama created expressly for this broadcast.
The Grand Budapest Hotel is framed as a novel being read by a young woman, the French Dispatch as stories from a newspaper.
I told her I was working on an article about you and your friends.
And Henry Sugar is being told to us by Roald Dahl sitting in his writing room.
He was rich because he had a rich father who was now dead.
Wes Anderson enjoys playing with the artifice, and constructed environments as a stylistic element.
Why does Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle?
So it's clear that he wants to bring further attention to the fact that his films themselves are an artifice of a story being told.
I burned my hand on the quickie griddle.
Why?
It's not clear.
It's a way to highlight the stylized, precise, and purposeful nature of his story worlds.
You really did it. That actually happened.
They aren't the real world, and no attempt is made to make them seem like they are. They're stories that exist in a separate world, and this is usually established from the very first scene.
The characters are fictional, the text hypothetical, the events an apocryphal fabrication.
Hey, Joe. Want me to shoot this guy?
If we're talking about directors with memorable opening scenes, there's one who rises to the surface. It is, of course, Quentin Tarantino.
Interior wedding chapel day. We not only see she is a bride, but she's 8 months pregnant.
Hans Lander is silver-tongued and charismatic. He's disarming.
Alors, je préfère du lait.
Yet we know not to truly let our guard down.
If a rat were to walk in here right now as I'm talking, would you greet it with a source of your delicious milk?
Through his words and strength of character, he convinces the farmer to betray his friends hiding under the floorboards. He's threatening, but a unique kind of threatening. He's not physically imposing, but there's an unspoken strength behind his words.
And if there are any irregularities to be found, rest assured they will be.
But then, all of this changes. Look at his change of expression here. Through this performance, the unspoken strength comes to the surface.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
The threat that was implied is now explicit.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
Tarantino loves to open his films with a dialogue sequence. In Inglourious Bastards, it's to set up Hans Lander.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
In Reservoir Dogs, we get to know the characters, and there's a level of mystery. Who are these people? What are they in the diner for? And why doesn't this guy tip?
I don't tip.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood establishes Rick and Cliff, but also the world of late 60s Hollywood.
Cliff here is meant to help carry the load.
Is that how you describe your job, Cliff?
But what all of these scenes have in common is that they're all entertaining.
What, carrying his load? Yeah, it's about right.
Tarantino's unique voice shines through in every word spoken.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery!
And most importantly, it's just fun to watch. For varying reasons, each scene is engaging, hooks us in, and leaves us wanting more.
Any of you fucking pricks move! And I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you!
At the start of this video, I said to ask what makes a great opening scene is an impossible question, and it is. But after unpacking a number of great beginnings, I've realised that to ask what makes a great opening scene is to ask what makes a great movie.
Let's work on the scene from the outside in.
Any boundaries drawn between scene 1 and scene 2 are arbitrary. You don't watch a movie scene by scene, but in one continuous experience.
I still don't understand the play.
Of course, the first thing you see matters, but there's no rules that decide what is and isn't a good opener.
Doesn't matter. Just keep telling the story. You're doing them right.
All of the scenes I've mentioned use different techniques. Some are almost entirely self-contained, and some are more intertwined with the continuous narrative. Some leave us asking questions, but some don't.
Sometimes you say two things at once, I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to be aiming at.
Every movie is different, so every opening scene must be different too. It's not very useful to examine opening scenes on their own, because that's not how you watch a film.
I'm Dr. King Schultz, this is my horse Fritz.
But it is useful to examine what's the purpose of a film's beginning.
He was 6 feet 2 inches tall and not perhaps as handsome as he thought he was.
What's the first impression the filmmakers wanted to give you? Mulholland Drive is an abstract and ambiguous movie, so the film starts with an abstract and ambiguous scene.
See what I mean?
Raiders of the Lost Ark is fun and action-packed, and so is the opening. So what makes a great opening scene is the same as what makes a great movie. You know it when you see it. If I can leave you with anything today, the next time you watch a film, I'd encourage you to really examine and pay attention to the first scene, because there's a good chance you'll learn a lot about the movie as a whole from the first few minutes.